Imagine living in a place where simply practicing your faith could put you in danger. What if going to a place of worship meant risking your safety? Or worse, what if you couldn't even find a place to worship? This is the harsh reality for millions of Muslims around the world today. Despite Islam being the second largest religion globally, with over 2 billion followers, Muslims in some countries are still treated as outsiders, facing discrimination and exclusion at every turn. And while Islam is expected to become the world's largest religion by 2050, the journey there is anything but easy. In today's video, we're not just talking about statistics. We're diving deep into the real struggles that Muslims face in countries where they aren't welcome in 2024. From social exclusion to strict government policies, the challenges are real and often heartbreaking. But this isn't about blame, it's about understanding. We'll explore the stories behind the numbers, look at the reasons for this hostility, and most importantly, ask ourselves, how can we, as a global community, stand up for religious freedom and human dignity? So let's begin this important conversation. Number one, Bhutan. Often celebrated for its peaceful landscapes and commitment to gross national happiness. On the surface, it seems like a paradise. But beneath this serene image lies a much more complex reality for religious minorities, including Muslims. In Bhutan, the Muslim population is incredibly small. While there may not be widespread violence or open hostility, the challenges come in more subtle ways. Bhutan's government prioritizes preserving its Buddhist identity, and this has led to strict controls over religious practices. For Muslims, this means that practicing their faith openly can be difficult, if not impossible. There are no official mosques, and Muslims often have to worship in private spaces or even travel outside the country for religious gatherings. Public expressions of faith are limited, making it hard for the community to feel truly integrated into society. While Bhutan promotes tolerance on paper, the strong pressure to conform to its Buddhist culture makes it difficult for Muslims to fully express their religious identity. As a result, they often walk a fine line between practicing their faith and blending into a society that doesn't fully accept them. Number two, China. Rapid rise as a global superpower is often celebrated, but there's a darker side to its policies, especially when it comes to religious freedom. For the Muslim Uyghur population in the Xinjiang region, daily life is a struggle for survival. The Chinese government claims its actions are aimed at maintaining stability and fighting terrorism, but the reality paints a much more troubling picture. Uyghur Muslims face intense repression, with over 1 million reportedly detained in what the government calls re-education camps. Inside these camps, people are subjected to forced labor, political indoctrination, and are often pressured to give up their religion entirely. Outside the camps, the government's surveillance reaches into every part of daily life. Strict controls on religious practices, such as fasting during Ramadan, growing beards, or attending mosque services, make it almost impossible for Uyghur Muslims to freely follow their faith. Mosques have been destroyed, and the Uyghur language and culture are being erased piece by piece. For Muslims in China, 2024 offers little hope for religious freedom. Their faith has become a target, and their ability to practice openly is under relentless attack by a government focused on control over freedom. Number three, India, a country of incredible diversity, home to multiple religions, languages, and cultures. But for its 200 million Muslims, the second largest Muslim population in the world, recent years have brought increasing challenges. While India is known for its democratic values, Muslims in the country are facing rising discrimination, largely driven by political and social tensions. The ruling party's promotion of Hindutva, a belief in the dominance of Hindu culture, has led to policies that many believe marginalize Muslims. Laws like the Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA, and the National Register of Citizens, NRC, are seen by critics as discriminatory. These laws have sparked protests across the country, with many Muslims fearing they could be stripped of their citizenship or rights. In addition to these political challenges, communal violence has also been on the rise. Incidents of mob lynchings and attacks on Muslim neighborhoods have made headlines, creating an atmosphere of fear. Social media has only made things worse, spreading misinformation and hate, further dividing communities. For Muslims in India, navigating this political and social landscape is becoming more difficult. with rising tensions casting doubt on India's promise of secularism and equality for all. Number 4. Myanmar. Often called the Golden Land for its cultural and natural beauty, hides one of the most tragic human rights crises in recent history. The Rohingya, a Muslim ethnic group living in the Rakhine state, have faced decades of persecution. But things took a horrifying turn in 2017. What followed was a brutal campaign by the Myanmar military, which the United Nations has described as ethnic cleansing. The Rohingya have been denied citizenship in Myanmar for generations, leaving them stateless in their own homeland. In 2017, after attacks by Rohingya militants on police posts, the military responded with extreme violence, burning villages, killing thousands, and forcing hundreds of thousands to flee to neighboring Bangladesh. Today, many Rohingya live in overcrowded refugee camps with little hope of returning home. Even those who remain in Myanmar live under harsh conditions, confined to camps with limited access to healthcare, education, or the ability to move freely. They are treated as outsiders, despite having lived in Myanmar for generations. For the Rohingya, 2024 offers little relief. Their plight remains one of the most severe examples of religious and ethnic persecution in the world today, with no signs of a peaceful resolution in sight. Number 5. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is known for its breathtaking landscapes and rich cultural heritage. But beneath this beauty, the country is grappling with rising religious tensions, particularly towards its Muslim minority. Muslims make up about 10% of Sri Lanka's population, and while they have lived peacefully alongside other communities for centuries, recent events have heightened tensions. The end of Sri Lanka's civil war in 2009 brought new hope for unity, but in recent years, a surge in Islamophobia has shaken this hope. The tragic Easter Sunday bombings in 2019, carried out by Islamist extremists, fueled suspicion and fear towards the Muslim community as a whole. Since then, Muslims have faced increased hostility, social boycotts, and even violence. Incidents like the 2014 Aluthgama riots and the 2018 Kandy riots further strained relations, as Muslim homes and businesses were targeted by mobs. Political figures have often fueled this anti-Muslim sentiment, using fear-mongering rhetoric to gain support. In Sri Lanka, the Muslim community now finds itself in a difficult position, balancing the fear of being unfairly targeted with the need to rebuild trust in a society still healing from decades of conflict. Number 6. Slovakia. Slovakia may be a small, picturesque country known for its rich history and beautiful landscapes, but for the Muslim community, life here is far from idyllic. Muslims make up a tiny fraction of Slovakia's population, numbering only a few thousand. Despite their small numbers, they face significant challenges both socially and politically. In 2016, Slovakia passed a law that requires religious groups to have at least 50,000 members to be officially recognized by the state. This law has made it nearly impossible for Islam to be recognized as a formal religion in the country, further isolating the Muslim community. Without official recognition, building mosques or Islamic centers becomes a challenge, forcing Muslims to gather for prayers in private homes or makeshift spaces. Socially, the climate isn't any more welcoming. Anti-Muslim sentiment has been rising, with political figures openly expressing Islamophobic views, which only fuels discrimination. Some Muslims in Slovakia have reported facing verbal abuse and social exclusion. For Muslims in Slovakia, practicing their faith openly is a daily struggle, and the lack of religious infrastructure only deepens their sense of isolation in a predominantly Christian nation. Number 7. Central African Republic. The Central African Republic, CAR, has been engulfed in political instability and civil conflict for years, and for its Muslim population, this has resulted in extreme hardship. The ongoing violence in the country, which has largely pitted Christian militias against Muslim groups, has made CAR one of the most dangerous places for Muslims in the world. The conflict began in 2013 when a predominantly Muslim rebel group, the Seleka, overthrew the government. This led to a violent backlash from Christian militias known as the Anti-Balaka. What followed was a horrific cycle of violence, with entire Muslim communities targeted, homes burned, and thousands killed. Many Muslims fled the country, seeking refuge in neighboring nations or living in camps under the protection of international peacekeepers. Those who remain in the car live in constant fear, confined to enclaves with little freedom of movement or access to basic necessities. Religious identity has become a deadly liability, and the Muslim population faces the threat of ethnic cleansing and genocide. The Central African Republic remains a place of deep division, where Muslims struggle daily to survive in a country torn apart by sectarian hatred and violence. Number 8. Japan. Japan is a country renowned for its rich cultural heritage, technological advancements, and deep-rooted traditions. However, for the small Muslim community living in Japan, the experience is one of subtle exclusion rather than outright hostility. Muslims in Japan are mostly immigrants, expatriates, or a small number of Japanese converts. And while Japan is generally peaceful, the lack of awareness and understanding about Islam presents unique challenges. One of the main struggles for Muslims in Japan is social integration. The country's homogeneous society can make it difficult for religious minorities to feel fully accepted. Halal food options are limited, mosques are few, and finding community support can be tough. Public understanding of Islam remains low, and some Muslims report feeling isolated as a result. In some areas, the construction of mosques and Islamic centers has been met with resistance from local communities, reflecting a hesitation to embrace religious diversity. Daily practices like finding prayer spaces or accessing halal food require extra effort, adding to the challenges Muslims face in Japan. While the Muslim population in Japan is growing, the road to full acceptance and integration remains a slow process as the country grapples with embracing multiculturalism. Number 9. Angola. A country rich in natural resources and known for its scenic landscapes presents a unique challenge for its small Muslim community. While Angola doesn't experience the same level of violent persecution as some other countries, Muslims here face significant obstacles, especially when it comes to the recognition of their faith. In Angola, Islam is not officially recognized as a religion. The government enforces strict requirements for a religion to gain formal recognition, including a large number of followers, something the Muslim population, which is relatively small, struggles to meet. Without this recognition, Muslims are unable to build mosques or Islamic schools, forcing them to practice their faith in informal, often makeshift settings. Socially, Muslims in Angola often face prejudice in a predominantly Christian nation. Some Muslim places of worship have been closed down, and the government has made it difficult for the Muslim community to organize public religious gatherings. This has created an environment where Muslims feel marginalized and cut off from the broader society. Despite these challenges, the Muslim community in Angola continues to practice their faith with resilience, though the lack of recognition and growing social tensions make it an uphill battle. Number 10. North Korea. North Korea, one of the most isolated and repressive regimes in the world, is notorious for its lack of religious freedom. While the country is officially atheist, religious groups are seen as threats to the state's control, and all forms of worship are strictly forbidden. For the tiny Muslim population, if they exist at all, the situation is extremely dangerous. Information about Muslims in North Korea is almost non-existent due to the government's strict control over information. However, it is widely known that any form of religious practice, including Islam, is met with severe punishment. Christians have been documented as the main victims of religious persecution, often being imprisoned in labor camps for simply practicing their faith. It's likely that Muslims would face similar, if not worse, treatment. The regime demands total loyalty to its leader, leaving no room for religious belief. Any attempt to worship, whether through prayer, fasting, or gathering, is seen as an act of rebellion. The few Muslims that may exist in North Korea, likely expats or converts, are forced to hide their faith entirely. In 2024, North Korea remains one of the most dangerous places in the world for any religious minority, where survival often means complete invisibility. The struggles faced by Muslims in these countries remind us of the ongoing battle for religious freedom around the world. Whether through discrimination, violence, or oppressive policies, millions continue to fight for the right to practice their faith openly. It's up to all of us to raise awareness and promote understanding. If you found this video informative, Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Stay informed and help spread the message of tolerance and human rights by hitting the like button and sharing this video. Let's work together for a world where everyone can live without fear, no matter their faith.